The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.
After months of trailing seemingly every other country, Canada is now setting world records for vaccinations. We're packing the patios, and at 1 minute past midnight tonight, we'll enter stage 2 of reopening. So, can we finally talk about having some fun? Well, tonight we will, with some advice about how to make the most of your Made in Ontario summer staycation. Then, Ontario Place turns 50 this summer, and we'll imagine what fun could come of restoring or redeveloping that iconic site. It's Tuesday, June 29th, and that's all next on the agenda. With all Ontarians over age 18 now eligible for their second COVID-19 vaccine dose, and with new federal guidelines for what you can and can't do safely, summer is here. That means your staycation can be a little more adventurous than it's been for quite some time. So let's get some advice on the best spots Ontario has to offer. In the nation's capital, we're joined by Raywat Dinandan, epidemiologist and associate professor at the University of Ottawa's Faculty of Health Sciences, and Erin Kelly, CEO of Advanced Symbolics, Inc., and in Markham, Ontario, Heather Greenwood Davis, contributing writer for National Geographic and founder of globetrottingmama.com. That is the best name for a website. Anyway, great to have you three with us again. It's so nice to see you all. I want to start just by setting the table for our discussion by putting some of these facts up, and that will really put into perspective what it's been like for the last couple of years in the tourism sector. So Sheldon, if you would, let's bring that up. In 2018, this is of course pre-pandemic, Ontario's tourism sector generated $36 billion in 1 year, and it supported nearly 400,000 jobs in the province. But travelers from the U.S. and overseas declined by 84% last year in 2020 over the year before. And tourism-related employment declined by 13% in 2020 over the year before. Those are very stark numbers. Having said all that, Raywat, come in here and start us off. How safe, in your judgment, is it to travel around the province of Ontario today?
It's pretty safe if you're going to stay in your car and just visit some places for the day. It gets a little trickier if you're staying overnight in certain places. And it depends if you've got your 2 doses. It depends what the nature of the place you're visiting is. So I like to monitor some indicators, among them the epidemiology, the trend of the disease, the percentage of the population that's been vaccinated, and as well the healthcare capacity. So it depends on where you're going. In general, though, I recommend that people get in their cars and visit small towns, spend your money. Don't necessarily stay overnight, but you can definitely spend your money and do some good that way. And
when you say it can be, if you haven't had 2 doses, a little bit tricky, what does tricky mean?
Tricky means that you're still at risk, especially for this Delta variant, right? So you got to take some extra precautions, wear a good quality mask, keep your distance, don't expose yourself to people unnecessarily. If you got 2 doses, you can take a few more risks, obviously. But in general, we're on the trend towards good things. So every day gets better than the previous one.
Okay. Heather, how much traveling have you been able to do or wanted to do during the course of the last 15 months of this pandemic?
Yeah, wanted to do and been able to do are 2 very, very different things in my life. We were able to get out a little bit last summer when things opened up a little bit, which was great. I did find that we had to be really careful and that I was very nervous the first time I went out. I pretty much packed up all our bed linens to go to a 4-star hotel. So that gives you an idea. But as the year went on, at least as the summer went on, I was able to relax a little bit and get out a little more.
Did I hear that right? You brought your own bed linens to a 4-star hotel?
We did. We were so nervous in that first trip that we actually packed up everything. They actually didn't end up making it out of the car in the destination. Once we went up and saw the room and the precautions that were being taken by the hotel, we felt a lot more comfortable.
I should ask Raywat, is there any need or obligation to do that now?
Not in terms of COVID, but if you're afraid of bed bugs, that works fine. But the fomite transmission thing has been pretty much debunked.
Okay, good to know. Erin, let me get you in here. You've, of course, been on our program many, many times in the past, and you often tell us what Ontarians are thinking through the very famous Polly, which is your algorithm that does polling as well as looking into social media and so on. But I guess we want to hear what you think. What's the most scenic place in your judgment to visit in the province of Ontario today?
Well, I'm a real ecology buff, so I like seeing the change of woodland and vegetation as I travel. So I would say so it's a bit of a tie for me. I really like, of course, Algonquin Park, very scenic. I love being out there. I really like going up to places like Timmins, where it's more isolated. You don't have as many people, and of course, the ecology is very different. But my number one choice was Tobermory and Manitoulin Island. Just need I say more? Anybody who's been there will know there's just so much to do for people, for families, and it's just beautiful to look at.
You're not just saying that because I'm the host of this show, are you?
Why are you a big...
I got a cottage on Manitoulin Island. I go there every summer.
Oh,
yeah.
where's my invite?
Well,
why am I renting when I go to Manitoulin Island?
It's an 8-hour drive from Toronto, so it's a long way to go, but it's very remote and it's absolutely stunning, isn't it?
Oh, I had no idea you had a cottage there. I love it. It's phenomenal.
And of course, I should have said camp. I have a camp on Manitoulin Island, not a cottage, because of course we Northern Ontarians call it a camp. It's only us snooty Southerners who call it a cottage. So I should correct the record while I still have a chance to do that. Okay, Ray, what's on your list?
For most scenic, my first choice was actually Niagara Falls, of all things, because of the kitsch. Because it's like a little bit of Atlantic City or Vegas right here in Ontario. And I like those kinds of strange experiences. But my real choice is Kingston, of all places, because it's very, very scenic. The streets are wide, they're tree-lined, they're just beautiful. And every step you take is a step through history, it feels like that. Because, as most people realize, Kingston was our first capital. And both of my sisters went to grad school at Queen's, so I spent a lot of time there. I have excellent memories of Kingston. It's just a stunning place, if you look at it just the right way.
It's funny how you felt a need to be a bit defensive about saying Niagara Falls, as if we sort of, we all take it for granted, but you're absolutely right. It's incredibly spectacular. And if it's been a number of years since you've seen it, people should go back and look at it. It never gets old.
Right. And you can see another country from there.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Very true. Okay, Heather, what's at the top of your list?
Wow, I loved both those picks. I picked Thousand Islands. So it's one of those places where I remember going with my own parents as a kid, but hadn't been back in many, many years, and got out again last summer and saw all the beautiful homes on the water. And, we went kayaking, we were on the ferry. It was just phenomenal, just a gorgeous part of the province.
Fantastic. Ray Watt, how much of the province have you seen?
Well, back in the early 90s, some friends and I rented a Lincoln town car and opened up a map to see where we can go for the day. And we decided to go around the world in Ontario because we went to London, to Paris, to Delhi, pronounced Delhi, and to a little town called Damascus. And we did all this in a few hours. So we've seen a fair bit of the cities no one talks about or thinks about. And it's fascinating. So yeah, I think I've seen a fair bit of the province. I encourage people to drive around the world in Ontario.
Now that's hilarious. Okay, London, Paris, I know where they are. Where's Damascus, Ontario?
I'm not sure, but we went there.
But you've been there. That's the main thing. Heather, your pick for the nicest town in Ontario?
Oh, nicest town's got to be Stratford, Ontario, where you've got all these artists, beautiful location, gourmet food, incredible people. And I just find that whenever you get into a place that has a lot of artists, you get a lot of friendly people. That's actually my mom and sons in Stratford, walking around the grounds there and hanging out by the water. So yeah, I've been there many, many times with all parts of my family and absolutely love it.
Now, how do you pick Stratford over Niagara-on-the-Lake, or for that matter, Niagara-on-the-Lake over Stratford? They've got so much in common, starting obviously with culture.
Yes, absolutely. But do they have Bieber? I mean, Stratford's got Bieber. You can do a self-guided Bieber tour in Stratford. I love Niagara too.
That may be the first time Justin Bieber's name has been mentioned on this program. It's entirely possible. So, okay, you're right. The Biebs makes a big difference. Ray Watt, how about prettiest town for you? You mentioned you'd been to around the world in the province of Ontario. What was the prettiest town you saw in your travels?
Well, prettiest, I still say, is Kingston, but I want to talk about nicest if I can. I mean, nicest, where I live right now in Ottawa, it's pretty nice. And I liken it to being a small town that behaves like a big city. And someone described it once as the only capital city where businessmen wear business suits and hiking boots at the same time. But nearby is a place called Perth. and that is extraordinarily nice and pretty. So I mean, anytime I go to Perth, I think, what would it have been like to have grown up here? It's like a little snippet of Little House on the Prairie. It's near a big city, but it feels like a small town, a small agricultural town. It has that old-fashioned 1800s agricultural town feeling that I adore.
You know, if memory serves, I think about 25 years ago, we did a contest on the previous show I used to do called Studio 2 for the prettiest town in Ontario. And of course, we had hundreds of towns competing for this, and Perth won. So you're onto something there. Now, for anybody who wants to visit, this is Perth, like Highway 7 and 37, around that area of the province in eastern Ontario?
That's right. It's pretty near Ottawa.
Right.
Which is why I go to it.
Got it. Okay, good. Aaron, how about you? The nicest town in Ontario that you've been to?
Now, this is the hard part about going third, because my choices have been taken, but I was going to say between Kingston, and I always have a tie between Niagara-on-the-Lake and Stratford, because, and I don't know if we're going to be, it doesn't sound like it, we'll be able to go to indoor theater this year, but I love going to the Shaw Festival and the Stratford Festival, so I think my choice has been taken, but I would love to be able to go and take in the theater if we could this year.
Now, it's interesting, you said Timmins earlier. What was it in particular that you liked about Timmins? Because nothing against Timmins. My boss actually is from Timmins, and we've taken this show on the road to Timmins many times, but it's not necessarily at the top of people's lists of places to go if you're on vacation. So what do you like about it?
No, we loved it. I mean, my kids love it. Having, like, so we had a little cottage on its own little island with a walkover bridge, and my kids just love seeing different species of, they're bird watchers. They're real geeks, I guess. Bird watchers. They love to bring the binoculars, and they see, and they're really into ecology. Both of them, they study it like religiously, and so they love to see the different species that you don't see here. It's the number one thing they talk about is how we see different things there. So I didn't mention it so much as a town, but as a place to go and look at nature. It's really different from what you get in southern Ontario or eastern Ontario.
That's for sure. Okay, good, thanks. Okay, let's do this. Heather, going to follow up with you. How difficult is it to plan family trips where the kids can get some educational benefit out of it, but it doesn't feel pedagogical, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually think it's quite easy. We just have to do a little bit of extra legwork at the beginning, right? Researching your site and making sure that where you're going, you're actually asking the questions that will help set the stage for it to be a little different than usual. So look for those tours that are a little offbeat, right? Maybe not the typical historical tour, and see if you can get behind the scenes a little bit to get some alternate perspectives. But there's a ton of stuff out there for sure.
Okay, your favorite, I guess, place in the province of Ontario, well known for its history, that you like to go to? What is it?
Well, known, I would go with Kingston, as Raywat did, but I think the one that we need to know better is Chatham-Kent. So Chatham-Kent is actually best known as being the terminus of the Underground Railroad here in Canada, or one of them. And so there is a ton of history right there that talks about that and talks about Canada's role in maybe not being as good as it should have been at that time, and sort of not being the hero that it's sometimes painted as. The Buxton School, which is on the Buxton historical site you're looking at there, is actually a school that was all Black and formed because the local white parents didn't want their kids going to school with Black children. In the end, the school became, sorry, I've lost the word, but that brought everyone together because the white parents actually wanted their kids to go to the better school.
Isn't that interesting? And how far back does that school go?
I believe it's back to the 1800s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Terrific. Terrific. Okay. Chatham-Kent, that's a great choice. Raywat, your pick for a place that's just oozing history in the province.
I have a strange choice. That's Ajax, Ontario. And the reason for that, it's not named after the character in Homer. It's named after the HMX Ajax, which is one of 3 ships involved in a battle in World War II against a Nazi ship called the Graf Spee, I think. And this was something called the Battle of the River Plate, the first naval battle of World War II. It was a big deal back then. It made all the news because it was the first naval battle. And the town is named after one of the ships of the battle. And the street names of that town are all people who were involved in that battle, including the captain of the German Nazi ship, Hans Langdorf. And I think for the longest time, it's the only city in the Western world with a street named after a Nazi, because supposedly he behaved himself quite honorably in accordance with the Hague Convention. I think, though, that there's a movement to rename that street, unless it's already been happening. But it's a touch of World War II history that we're not often aware of right here in the heart of Ontario.
That is fascinating. I didn't know that. And of course, Kitchener used to be Berlin, and the Berlin name did not survive, but apparently this street name did. That's kind of cool. Okay. Aaron, pick up the cudgel, if you would, and tell us your favorite historic place to go.
I have to go with my hometown, Ottawa. I think for Canadian history especially, we've got everything here. The last person to die of capital punishment in Canada is here, so you can take the haunted walk. Of course, this was the person who many say was wrongly convicted of assassinating Darcy McGee, a father of Confederation, and so his ghost haunts the Byward Market today. And if you do come down here, of course, you see the Parliament buildings and all of that, and Indigenous sites, but you definitely have to go to the Mackenzie King estate. Ray Watt mentioned the war, and we hear about how our Prime Minister at that time, Mackenzie King, they take you on a haunted walk there too, and it's just fabulous to learn about Canadian history, about a prime minister who during the war was using psychics and mediums to give him advice on what decisions to make, and they're very open about it, and also his relationship with his pets. He believed his dog, there were physically two dogs, but with one name, Pat, because the dog was reincarnated. And my favorite part was when, well, they have the ruins. Of course, they took Canadian ruins and put them on his estate. But my favorite part was when they told us that Mackenzie King, when he died, wanted to be buried with Pat, between Pat's two bodies, his dogs. And this actually went to Westminster because people here felt, well, he should be buried where he wants to be buried. But they also said it would be humiliating to Canada to have a prime minister buried with dogs, and so it actually went to Westminster, and it was ruled that he could not be buried with Pat.
Well, that explains why, because he's buried 20 minutes from this studio at Mount Pleasant Cemetery, and I go visit him all the time actually, and it explains why his gravesite says, "Here lies William Lyon Mackenzie King," and there's no reference to Pat. I guess Pat didn't make the cut.
No, Pat's at the Mackenzie King estate, and they actually have a cafe there called Cafe Pat, where you can go and pay your respects.
To Pat. That's
Pat.
great.
And
Okay.
There's one tombstone and two dogs, of course, and it's just Pat singular.
The stuff we're learning tonight. This is terrific. Well, let me add one thing to the list as well, and Aaron, I guess refers back to your comments about Manitoulin Island. Indigenous people have lived on Manitoulin Island for 10,000 years, and there are some fabulous museums, art galleries, tremendous culture to see if you're interested in Indigenous history on Manitoulin Island. Another great reason to hop the ferry from Tobermory, go across to South Bay Mouth and see stuff. Anyway, I put that out there, and let's follow up on that. You know, and let's get a little controversial here, but because of recent developments, I suspect there has been a greater willingness among non-Indigenous Canadians to learning more about Indigenous history and culture. So I just mentioned Manitoulin Island. Heather, do you want to pick up on that and suggest a place where if people are interested in Indigenous history, they might also consider going?
Yeah, I second you on Manitoulin Island. I was up there and spent some time with the Wiki-Wimikong tourism people, and they actually took me over to Point Grandine, so back on the mainland, and that is the first built from scratch First Nations owned and operated park. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely gorgeous. So definitely do that. And out in Chatham, again, there's a new offering called Awaken Your Spirit, which was all about the Ojibwe spirit horses. So you have experiences where you're connecting with the horses, learning First Nations and Métis history and culture, and just learning how to do better and be better.
Great. Ray Watt, how about you on Indigenous history?
Yeah, a few years ago, I got to visit one of my former students who runs an Indigenous health program in Northern Ontario, and she lives in Sioux Lookout. So Sioux Lookout is my choice, and it's a town about 5,000 people, maybe 300 kilometers away from Thunder Bay, and half the population are of Indigenous extraction. The interesting thing is the name, Sioux Lookout. It's named that because the Sioux Mountain in the center of the town is where the Ojibwe people would look out for invading Sioux warriors. It's the place where they looked out for the Sioux, hence the Sioux Lookout. So I highly recommend it. Strong Indigenous features. The culture is strong there. And of course, it's a great place to go in Northern Ontario in general, as we should all visit. Right on. Aaron, how about you?
I love actually taking in the arts when it comes to Indigenous culture. And so here, I've had a lot of opportunity at the Shankman Art Center, at universities. They have great readings and performance art. So that's kind of the culture part. And I'd love to see that married with some of the physical places, and especially Heather mentioned the provincial park. I would like to see more of our provincial parks celebrating and exploring Indigenous culture. For example, I think about, as a child, and I took my kids there to Marie Among the Hurons, where they've recreated this 17th century place where the missionaries were, and it's still very much told from the perspective of European history and the missionaries. And yes, you can make birch bark canoes and drums, but it's still it's really kind of light. And I'd love to see more about the Wendat people and what was their experience there, told more from their perspective, because they've gone through a lot of effort to recreate this place, and it would be great to see more Indigenous there. But other than that, I think checking out the theaters and checking out opportunities to really see storytelling and dance, that's what I've really enjoyed the most.
Apropos of this, and if I may use my moderator's prerogative here one more time, I'd add one more thing to the list, and that is there's a residential school building in Brantford, Ontario, 2 hours west, not even 2 hours west of where I'm sitting right now. It was a residential school until the 1990s, and Indigenous organizations have taken it over, and they now run it as a museum. And the building is there in its original form. You can go inside. It's very well done. And if people want to take a day trip to Brantford to see, it's really quite a magnificent building, which they have restored and run now as a museum. And you can learn something a little bit more about the reckoning, in fact, that we're going through right now as a country. So I'd add that to the list. Yeah, Brantford, Ontario, something to see. Okay, let's do, where do we want to go next? Okay, research on infection rates before we go anywhere. So I got to start with the epidemiologist on this. If you're planning a trip, I mean, how much research do you have to do on the epidemiological front before you go anywhere?
I think is advisable. I think check with the local public health of the place you want to visit to, their website, to see what the situation is. Is it technically a hot zone? If that's the case, probably avoid it, especially if the healthcare capacity where you're going is limited. You don't want to add to their burden if you are a susceptible person, especially if you've only had one dose, for example. But otherwise, let public health do public health, and don't spend too much time worrying about this stuff. Just follow the guidance and live your life otherwise.
Heather, your view on that?
Yeah, I think it is important that you're doing a little bit of research. You want to make sure that if you are going to these places, you feel comfortable going and you're not, carrying some problems with you when you go. You want to make sure that it's safe for you to be there and it's safe for the people you're visiting.
Great point. All right, let's finish up on this. I guess I want to know whether you three are planning any trips this summer for you and yours. Aaron, start us off. You going anywhere?
Yeah, we're going to Algonquin Park.
How long does it take to get there from where you are?
2.5, 3 hours.
Not bad at all. And how long are you going to stay?
About a week.
And what do you hope to get done?
Paddling with the moose. I hope to get nothing done. That's the whole idea. But be outside and just fresh air and enjoying some, family time. Not like we haven't had a lot of that in the last 18 months.
But you have it in Algonquin Park, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So this will be different.
We decided to stay away from. Yeah, we're still staying out in the open air for this summer, and I think partly it's because a lot of things are booked. We actually looked around; a lot of things were booked by the time we got around. So. And
will you stay in like a real lodge or pup tents, or how do you do it?
No, we're people of the earth.
Good for you. Very impressive. Okay, Ray, what? How about you?
I have a boring answer. I've got a 1-year-old freshly new baby who hasn't seen many of his relatives. So we're going to Toronto a lot, where he'll do the tour of all his relatives. Safe, mostly outdoor tours due to COVID. And that's what we're doing, going to Toronto and just shopping the baby around.
That sounds great. Okay, finish us off, Ms. Davis.
Well, I think we're swapping because I think I'm going to find myself in Ottawa this summer. I was mentioning earlier, I have a son who's about to start university, his second year there. So I want to make sure he gets out and sees it. And I'm also thinking I should head up to the Pagan camp on Manitoulin Island, since that sounds like the place to be.
You drop by anytime you like. Now, mind you, you may have a tough time finding it because it's near a village of 100 people and it's in the suburbs of that village. So it's not easy to find. So good luck.
I'm sure you'll provide me with directions. I'm confident.
Very good. Heather, if you're serious about that, I am happy to give you coordinates of where we are. That would be fantastic.
Perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
Great. Well, look, I want to thank all three of you for coming on the program this time and on previous occasions as well. You know, we wish you all the good fortune in the world to enjoy your summer break, and let's just hope for a better fall, right, as we go forward. Thanks so much to all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ontario Place, that once iconic park on prime Toronto waterfront, turns 50 this year. And while many people have very fond memories of the place, its future is up in the air. This summer, word is expected on how the province plans to redevelop it. With us on that, we're joined in Fez, Morocco by Aziza Shaouni, co-lead for the Future of Ontario Place project. She's an associate professor at the University of Toronto's John H. Daniels Faculty of Architecture. And in the Riverside neighborhood of the provincial capital, David Ryder, City Hall Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star. And we're delighted to welcome both of you from very near and very far away to our program this evening.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
Let's just start by reading this from the Toronto Star's editorial board. David, I suspect you might have had a hand in the writing of this, but this goes back to last month. And Sheldon, if you would, here we go. When the Ford government decided to embark on a much-needed redevelopment of Ontario Place, it asked international developers to submit their ideas for the 155 acres of prime real estate on Toronto's waterfront. It did not ask the people who live here what they want done with this publicly owned land. It did not reach out to the city, which has a significant interest in Ontario Place and owns neighboring Exhibition Place, another 192 acres that are also in need of revitalization. In fact, the government didn't even offer up a vision of its own, beyond the vague desire for, quote, a world-class year-round destination. Okay, David, let's just go back to a bit of the beginning of this. Why is the provincial government determined in the first place to redevelop Ontario Place?
Well, there's a bit of a mystery as to why all of a sudden Doug Ford had a real desire to redo it, although it, you know, the park was essentially fallow and unused, so it makes sense they would at some point. But it was at the opening of the X a few years ago that a TV cameraman just sort of said to him, like, are you going to redevelop Ontario Place? And he said, yeah. And then at the announcement, all of a sudden he said, and we're going to redo Ontario Place. And then since then, you know, there's been a big push with, as you mentioned, proposals coming from all over the world on how to redo it. I mean, we know that Doug Ford has an interest in the waterfront. When he was at the City of Toronto as a city councillor and right-hand man to his brother Rob, who was mayor, people will recall that he essentially tried to engineer a takeover of the city's waterfront plans and seize it from Waterfront Toronto, which is an agency that has city, provincial, and federal. That didn't fly. So I think we all expected at some point he would, you know, want to put his stamp on Ontario Place, which is provincially owned property. But how he went about it, I think, was different than a lot of the people at the city expected.
Well, let's just remind everybody how we got here. We've got a half century of history to look back at. And let me just take a moment here to go through it, because it was, in fact, back on May 22nd, 1971, that Ontario Place opened to the public, followed by, you may remember this, the Children's Village the next year. John Robarts was the premier who wanted kids in Toronto to have a place to play in the summer, so he got Ontario Place started. Bill Davis was the premier who cut the ribbon on the place 50 years ago. In 1992, let's fast forward, it was redefined as a water amusement park. In 1994, its open-air theater, The Forum, boy, that place was great, but it was replaced by the Molson Amphitheater. In 2002, the Children's Village was demolished. In 2012, Ontario Place was shuttered by the then government of Premier Dalton McGuinty. In 2014, the province recognized Ontario Place as a heritage place. In 2019, the province abandoned its potential plan to put a casino on the grounds of Ontario Place. And last year, Ontario Place was added to the World Monuments Watch List. Okay, let's pick up the story there. Aziza, the World Monuments Watch List, what is that?
Well, it is, kind of a list that's been put together by an NGO based in New York and having arms of all over the world called the World Monuments Fund, and that decide of every year to name the most important buildings in the world that are at risk, so the heritage buildings. And Ontario Place has been named, in 2020 at the same time as Easter Island, for example, or the Cathedral of Notre Dame. So that speaks a lot of its importance as heritage on the world stage.
In your view, what makes Ontario Place worthy of being on that list?
Well, there are so many things, but one thing for sure, it's its unique combination of landscape, and so it's 3 artificial islands that were built on Lake Ontario that are interconnected by a series of different parks and also different bridges that connect a series of landmark buildings, including the famous Scenic that hosted the first IMAX theater in the world, 5 floating pods, the Children's Village, the villages. So it's simply a stunning piece of what we call in the field of architecture, it's a mega structure. So it's a structure that attempts to integrate architecture, landscape, and infrastructure together. And there are very few of them in the world that were built on the water. So if Toronto holds one of these very few modern masterpieces, why would they want to tamper with it?
All right, one more follow-up, Aziza. If it enjoys heritage place protection, is it not safe?
It's not actually protected. It was indeed put on the list of heritage by the province in 2014, but very conveniently it was removed from that list right before the call for development. Now, if it is on the list of the World Monuments Fund, it has an international recognition, but this recognition, unfortunately, today does not seem to be understood by the province.
All right, let's stay with the province. David, again, help us with some of the background here, because you're quite right. When Doug Ford first became premier and was asked about this, it seemed like all bets were off, right? I mean, a casino was potentially in the mix, ripping down Scenic and the pods was part of the mix. That's not part of the plan now. So what happened along the way to get Premier Ford to change his mind about what potentially could happen there?
Yeah, I mean, I have to speculate a little bit, but I think a lot happened, including his government going through a period of real unpopularity for a while and then grappling with the pandemic. Yeah, you're right. Originally, they said no condos and no casino. That was the original ground rules. And then since then, they've said that the Scenic and the pods will remain. The originally they were asked, well, what if somebody wanted to tear down the Scenic? They said, well, let's not close our minds. What if you wanted to build all along the lake and close off the lake and just have a corporate structure there? And they were like, let's listen to it. But I think part of it is that people might remember that Doug Ford and John Tory are fairly friendly now, but not that long ago, before the pandemic, they were kind of at war because Doug Ford wanted to make deep public health cuts to all the local health units, and Toronto especially. John Tory went door to door with Joe Cressy, who happens to be the councillor. He's the public health chair. He happens to be the councillor for Ontario Place, arguing against those cuts in the wards of Doug Ford's Conservative members. And Toronto won that war. I think Doug Ford now is saying he won't do anything without John Tory's say-so. Since that editorial was written in the Star, groups of civil servants from the city are meeting with groups of civil servants from the province. I think the fact is that Doug Ford is a year away from an election, and he wants to keep all the Toronto members he can. And his government, is popular in parts of the province, a lot less popular in the city of Toronto.
But technically speaking, Doug Ford is the decider here, right? The city doesn't own the land. It's the province's responsibility. Have I got that right?
That is completely right. The deputy city manager who's leading the Toronto side of the talks And it's interesting, she's a former longtime Toronto police officer, and the province has made Mark Saunders, the former Toronto police chief, their point guy on this. So that's an interesting dynamic. She reported back to council and said, yeah, the talks are going really well. The province seems really committed to public consultation. They get that Toronto needs to be on board. But then some of the questions to her was, okay, but like, what are they going to pick for the redevelopment partner? Like, what's actually going to be there? And she said, well, we don't know. They can't tell us. It's a closed kind of bid system. So then the kind of remark was, Toronto's sort of riding shotgun. We're on a trip. We're being asked to plan the trip, but they won't tell us the destination. And I think we're still in that situation. Even the protection of the Sinosphere and the pods, as far as I know, is completely verbal. It's not the original request for expression or interest that the province issued doesn't guarantee that. So right now we're all kind of on whatever. Really, at the end of the day, Cabinet has complete control, except for the fact that the city controls sort of the entry points and a little bit of the land. And also, I think there is a big acknowledgement that Ontario Place and Exhibition Place, the city-owned side of that downtown sort of quadrant, should be looked at as a whole. And that was why Toronto was saying, let's sit down and talk about it. Doug Ford now seems to be acknowledging that, but before it was just like, we're going to make it a world-class attraction and there's going to be entertainment and it's going to be great.
Okay, we're going to come back to the bids later, but Aziza, I want to say something here, very provocative, just to get you going, and
Sure.
I'll play devil's advocate, and that is this. If Ontario Place were so fabulous, it wouldn't have been closed for the last decade. Discuss.
Sure, it's a very good point. Well, if it was so fabulous, I mean, let's say that Ontario Place is like a body, right? I mean, if you start to cut pieces of that body, its arms, like the forum, to take out its blood, which was its main program. So you had restaurant, you had stores, you had the very famous children's village that was designed by Macmillan, who was the father of soft play. So if you truncate key pieces of an organism, how can you expect it to survive? So you obviously bled him to death, and you expect him to still function. I mean, my response to you would be that Ontario Place was violated on many accounts by the removal of many programs and several of its key structures. That's the reason why it was not functioning. The reason was also is that there was no money that was put in it for its maintenance, and its core value, which was to offer a democratic space for all of Torontonians, especially the ones that don't have access to cottages or to lakes, was completely taken away, because Ontario Place, starting from 1984, there were efforts to monetize it, so to turn it into a theme park, which was not at the core of its principles. So in a sense, why was Ontario Place closed down, not functioning? It was because its core ideas were removed and its core programs as well.
I'm not going to operate under the assumption that everybody who's watching this right now has ever been there. I mean, lots of people have, but lots of people haven't. So, Sheldon, would you mind? I'm at question 5 right now. Can we just start to cycle through some of the pictures? And Aziza, maybe you could take us through this. Just describe, essentially, all of these different features and amenities in Ontario Place.
Sure. So what you can see here is, kind of a little canal, which so you have several of these that are intermingled with the 3 artificial islands of Ontario Place. And you can see people canoeing, and there are a lot of water-related activities. As a matter of fact, Ontario Place has the cleanest water of all of the Toronto waterfront. It was actually designed to be able to minimize pollution by the landscape designer Mako. Here you can see the very famous forum that had an amazing central stage. There are very epic concerts that happen here. I think even when the Queen of England came to visit, she actually visited Ontario Place and the forum here next. And you can see here the villages, which are a set of different modular structures that hosted stores and also different type of amenities. Next, please. Here, just, kind of a walkway between the landscape designed by Makoha that was composed of native species from Ontario. The skating rink, and here it's the summer, so it's the rollerblader rink that happened in the middle of the villages.
And that's it. That's our last picture. So thank you for taking us through all that. I should also say that Ontario Place Forum, I think people loved it so much because the stage, of course, rotated. So it didn't matter where you were sitting. You would always get a great view at some point during the course of it. But of course, they decided to take it down. Okay, David, my turn now to say something to you that you're going to find very provocative and unappealing. But, you know, that's what I do for a living. Eventually, Ontario Place is going to be connected to the subway line. At least that's the plan right now. It's part of Doug Ford's Ontario line. It's the ultimate destination for Ontario line. What would be so bad if we were to put up condos there and have people live there all year round?
Well, I'll preface it by saying I'm a reporter, not a columnist, so I'm a little shy about offering opinion. I would say that well, one point is I'll make one clarification, which they are calling it the Ontario line, and they're saying it terminates at Ontario Place, but the station would actually be at Exhibition Place. You'd still have to walk across. So it's not like people would be taking a condo to their doorstep. They would have a kilometer or so to hoof it, and then you'd have to figure out how to get them across. You know, there's been talk about housing and how housing could help pay for whatever else you do there. What I would just say is that so much of Toronto's waterfront is already condos. I mean, I grew up in Etobicoke, and we drive downtown, and my dad worked along the lakeshore. And just, you know, I went from seeing it being sort of somewhat industrial, but you could see the lake, to this thick curtain of condos. Like, it was almost all sold. So I think the feeling of Ontario Place for All and some of the other advocacy groups, and Joe Cressy, local councillor, is, you know, condos pay for a lot in the city, and they bring, no doubt, people love seeing the towers in the sky and construction jobs. But this one site is this huge, you know, relatively undeveloped gem. So let's keep it as much as we can where everybody can go everywhere. Because as soon as you put up a condo, then there's a sign that says no going on here. And I know from, you know, the ones farther down the lake, you know, I remember there were times where if you wanted to go and look at your own lake, a security officer with a dog would come and like chase you away. So do you want that on this one last gem? The other thing I would say is the way it is right now actually gets more visitors, well, about the same number of visitors as the CN Tower, when there's not much operating there. That tells you the value of the site and what happens to the value of that site when you put up a condo tower.
Aziza, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, sure. You know, like I just want to mention that the one of the claim that you mentioned that nothing is happening in Ontario Place, or what Doug Ford has mentioned is that it's completely run down, goes completely against the result of the research that we led with the World Monument Fund and ACO that made us realize that there are many, many groups, going from people doing yoga to grannies gathering there, to skateboarders, to people doing canoeing, swimming, bird watchers. There are so many community groups that use the site. So the site, even with no activities, is so active. And during COVID, it has proven to be so important to mental health. So, you know, speaking about putting condos and marinas for you know, kind of expensive boats, etc. I mean, for me, it seems pretty shocking in a democracy. It's like, you know, handing High Park to developers to make it more profitable and to add condos onto it. I'm surprised that not more Torontonians are appalled by this idea.
Well, let me follow up with you on that, Aziza. I mean, at some point, the province is going to pick a plan and it will unveil it for the public, presumably to have its say. How confident are you that there will be a proper public consultation process so people can have at it?
I'm completely not confident because it started completely on the wrong foot. Simply, one needs to start with a consultation, you know, like first, before developing a project. If you propose a project already set up and wrapped up, the public would have very little say or leeway. I think it's just going to be, you know, superficial. But most importantly, there is something that the provincial government did not do based on international standards. It's a proper conservation management plan. So it's not that changes cannot happen in Ontario Place. The goal is to be able to preserve its heritage, landscape and architecture heritage, and to be able to develop and adding programs in areas that's not going to compromise its spirit. And this is what the proper way that this you know, call for development should have happened.
David, let me circle back to something you said a few moments ago, which is the former chief of police for the city of Toronto, Mark Saunders, has a role in all of this. What is his role?
He's the advisor to the premier and cabinet on what should happen. Why he was chosen, we were just told, he's an experienced public servant and a smart guy. I know that part of his role is going to be reaching out to Toronto councillors and sort of sounding them out. I mean, everything we're hearing is that a proponent, if not completely chosen, that the province essentially has a plan that they want to move forward with. And I think now he will be a valuable role. Toronto, most of the councillors know him. He came and appeared before council many times to answer questions on policing issues. So I think part of his role will be consultation, but also I think trying to sort of soften the ground and hoping that they'll, if not exactly embrace the way the province has gone about it, at least give them a fair hearing or not sort of fight them right out of the gate. I feel like I should mention, just because as well as going to Ontario as a kid, I worked there 3.5 summers. So when you talk about the Forum, I worked at the front gate, but I also worked at the Forum many nights. So it is an interesting, fascinating place.
Huh. Okay, let me just pick up on the Saunders issue here, and that is, you're quite right. He's an experienced public servant. He knows the members of City Council from his time as chief. To the best of your knowledge, does he have any apparent knowledge in tourism or property redevelopment or architecture or anything like that?
No. He's a lifelong police officer. That's been his life. He was started as a young officer in Toronto and finished his career at the top of the police heat. But there's been nothing to suggest that he has any expertise in the issues that are on the table right now. As I said, we know he has I think he has a good working relationship with the deputy city manager who's on the Toronto side, is leading consultations. That's all we know.
Aziza, are you comfortable with the role he's played throughout this?
Not so much, because we should not forget that we're dealing with a modern heritage site here that has been acknowledged on the international arena, and yet not having somebody who has experience in heritage preservation is very worrisome.
Okay, David, let's pick up then on the issue of the bids. I gather there have been, at least your newspaper has reported, there have been sort of 3 competing bids trying to get the Premier and the government's eye on this. Do you have any inside dope on who's got the edge at the moment and what the project would look like?
I would say I have informed speculation, and that is that it still appears, as we reported a while ago, myself and my colleague Robert Benzi, it still appears that a Austrian spa developer company called, I believe it's pronounced Terme, Therme, appears to have the inside edge. The other main competing bids were one from Ken Tannenbaum, part of the MLSE family, and his Kilmer group, which was more of a sort of a campus sort of appeal with a bunch of different things. There was going to be an event center, indoor and outdoor, sort of a swimming or splash area, park space. I'm not hearing that is got a lot of traction. And then the other main one was sort of a bit of an unknown bid. They haven't really talked publicly. We haven't heard much about it, by Carl DeMarco, who used to be with WWF or now WWE Canada, so a wrestling promoter. So my hunch is, from what I'm hearing, and I think we're going to hear some news pretty soon, I think it appears like some kind of development with Terme, which is kind of like, from everything I've read, I'm waiting for the Star to send me on a tour of their European spa resorts. But if everything I've read, it's
I'll bet you are. I'll bet you are.
Yeah, it's essentially kind of like Great Wolf Lodge Water Park, but with adult kind of spa areas and adult pools, and sort of a mix and it has palm trees and beaches, but it's all enclosed in glass. So kind of think of I guess the idea that in February you could have essentially a little mini, tropical vacation here. But what I'm hearing is they're not just going to hand them the whole site. It's huge, right? It's 155 acres. They know that there would be some controversy over that. I think it would be just a part of it. West Island is probably the most likely part, and that there would be other components. Live Nation has to be part of it because they have the long-term lease on Budweiser stage. I think it makes sense that probably Live Nation will have some kind of expanded role, if there is some kind of a expanded event space, or they build on what they already do. And then I think there will probably be smaller other components that will be less commercial, to, maybe that will maybe blunt some of the criticism. So I wouldn't be shocked if you see some kind of like a, climate change research center or some kind of maybe educational kind of component. The other wild card is that part of the Ken Tannenbaum bid was bringing the Ontario Science Centre from its current location down to the waterfront. I think that's also a possibility. There are a lot of people who think that makes sense. They think it makes sense to have the Science Centre in a more sort of central populated area. It would also free up land farther up the Don Valley for affordable housing or housing of some kind, which obviously there's a great thirst for. The Science Centre it's a provincial building, but it sits on city land, so you could see some kind of cooperation to get housing going there. So that I don't know that, but that's certainly a possibility.
Okay, a bunch of things to follow up with Aziza therefore. First of all, on the Science Centre, like Ontario Place, that was a Robarts government initiative, and it was actually a centennial year project. And of course, it's 50 plus years been in Don Mills. Aziza, if they wanted to move the Science Centre down to Ontario Place, how would you regard that?
Well, I would regard it as a double insult because, kind of the building that's designed by Moriyama and Teshima is also, like a modern icon of Toronto. It's recognized internationally. So to empty it and demolish it and to bring that program to Ontario Place that you're going to disagree, you are losing two icons of Canadian modern heritage. And I'm so surprised that with Canada's young history and that it would actually get rid of its modern heritage, like so quickly and simply for profit. And it's not thinking of all of the public amenities that it's providing. So, yeah, I mean, I think it would be like a very poor choice.
Okay, and let me follow up on this other thing. And I preface this question by saying I don't mean it to sound parochial, because, of course, we want Canadians to be able to bid on projects in other countries, so we can't be offended if Austrians want to bid on projects in our countries. But if there are two strong Canadian, Ontario-based plans, and they go for an Austrian plan, is that problematic for you? Aziza, that's for you.
You mean for me?
Yeah.
No, not at all. I think that we live in a very global world. I think what's troublesome to me is the quality of the proposal, that the proposal did not integrate a conservation management plan that's going to acknowledge the heritage, that the proposal of the Austrian is going to include, a type of program that's not compatible with the norms of sustainability. If you're going to build a gigantic enclosed pool that's going to have an exotic climate and palm trees, that's going to consume a huge amount of energies. So in a sense, Toronto should be having the highest, as a world-class city, the highest standards in public spaces, in accessibility to the waterfront open to all, norms of sustainability, and yet what we see today is completely the opposite. So we're in a way walking backwards.
All right, Aziz, I'm going to get you to do again what you did a few moments ago, and that is speak to a couple of pictures here. And Sheldon, I'm on number 12 right now. If you could bring up, there we go. Why don't you describe what we're seeing here? For starters, let's do that.
Those are skateboarders that are using the parking of Ontario Place when it's not in use. So the site is actually very lively at any time of the day and of the week and of the season. So it's not empty like Doug Ford mentions. This is one of the pods, which is this futuristic structure that's holding through like a central mast, and it used to hold an exhibition spaces and restaurants. Then it had even like a nightclub and wedding hall. And today, unfortunately, it is empty, and the views from the pods are fantastic towards the city.
Okay, so if they keep Cinesphere and they keep the pods and they keep all of these other things that we've shown pictures of that you find to be of particular heritage significance, and they maybe add some other new things, is that a sort of a march in the right direction for you?
Well, but it all depends how it's done. I mean, there is, kind of an international standards method, to protect any type of heritage is in a way to have a plan. And in that plan, you highlight what are the elements that have the highest significance. As I mentioned before, Ontario Place is extremely special, is that it really intermingles a landscape, an artificial landscape with different bridges and infrastructures and buildings. If you only preserve one aspect of it, you have lost its spirit. So I think, proper study, This is what, our group, the Future of Ontario Place and Ontario Place for All, have been. We are, non-profit citizen initiatives. What we're trying to ask the provincial government to do is to actually follow the proper manner to deal with modern heritage or any type of heritage.
Okay, we're down to about a last minute and a half here. And David, let me give it to you. When do you expect to get a verdict out of the government of Ontario on what's going to happen?
Very soon. The mayor was quoted as saying he expects something very shortly. And I've been making calls in the last couple of days, and the drumbeat is very loud that we're going to hear something from the province. I think it will probably be sort of the beginning of a process rather than the end. Because they're going to say that they want public consultation, but they're going to announce, I think, whatever the main commercial kind of winning bidder or vision, and then a bunch of other uses for it. So, and we're already behind because the tourism minister said in late winter that it would be announced by spring. So I'm going to say I wouldn't be shocked if it's in the next week or two.
All right, next week or two, and then by the time consultations are done, when might you expect to see the very first shovel in the ground?
Well, that's really hard because we don't know what the consultations are going to be, how meaningful they're going to be, what impact they're going to be. I mean, I think one of the people involved in one of the bids I talked to yesterday said, years, whether it's 1 year or 3 years or 5 years. The one thing I think that the provincial government, if I was in the provincial government, what I would be wary of is you can't say we're not going to consult people, but there was a little project farther down the lake called Sidewalk Labs that had a lot of consultation and ended up not going ahead. So I think they're going to have to figure out how to not leave themselves open to not having real consultation, but at the same time have an end date where they can say, okay, we're gonna do this thing.
Gotcha. This was really helpful, you two. Aziza and David, thank you so much for joining us on TVO tonight. It was great to have you both. Take care, everybody. And once they unveil the plan, it'd be great to have you come back and tell us what you think about what they've unveiled.
Sure,
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, take good care, everybody. And that is the agenda for Tuesday, June 29th, 2021. Ontario's capital city is preparing a new official plan that will shape the next 30 years of growth and development. And tomorrow we'll find out what that involves and why the city wants public input to get it right. I'm Steve Paikin. Thanks for watching TVO, for joining us online at tvo.org, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.